So, hallo, herzlich willkommen zu einer weiteren Runde Let's Play Zero Escape 999. Und, ja. Ich würde sagen, wir machen mal direkt da weiter, wo wir aufgehört haben. Wir haben ja als letztes quasi das Operationszimmer, den Operationssaal gehabt als Escape Room. Und jetzt geht's weiter. They left the operating room. The hallway took them around several corners and past several doors, but they were all locked.
There too, huh? Every door in this place is locked up tight.
How about that one?
The final door was hidden in a corner of the wall, of the hall, Entschuldigung.
May as well give it a try.
Junpei grabbed the handle. As he made to push it open, a voice stopped him. The voice came from behind him and belonged to neither Seven nor Clover.
Jumpy!
Huh?
He spun around. He saw someone running toward him from the other end of the hallway. There were three people coming toward Junpei and his companions.
June? And Santa? And Lotus too?
They pulled up short in front of Junpei, breathing hard.
Whoa! What the hell is this?
What are you doing here?
What? But we didn't...
Before he could finish, Clover spoke.
Hey guys! Could you come take a look at this?
She was standing near the end of a small hallway that branched off to the right. The rest of them ran over to her, curious as to what she'd found.
Look on the wall here.
There was something on the wall at the end of the hallway.
A map of the ship's interior?
It says C deck. So it's the map for this floor then?
Door 7. And... Door 8. Yep, they both eventually end up at this hallway.
In fact...
Yeah, isn't that what I said? We aren't going to be split up permanently till we find door 9. We might get separated for a little while, but we'll see each other again.
Ich möchte mal kurz anmerken, ich finde, Seven ist ein Charakter, der am Anfang irgendwie ein bisschen dämlicher rüberkommt, als er eigentlich ist. Der Kerl ist eigentlich ziemlich hell im Kopf. Wobei wir über ihn noch nicht viel wissen. Also, ich bin mal gespannt, was Leute bisher so über... Entschuldigung, ich muss kurz mich räuspern. Ich bin mal gespannt, was Leute so an Meinungen über die einzelnen Charaktere bisher in die Kommentare geschrieben haben. Also, ich kann es ja nicht wissen. Ich nehme ja alles im Voraus auf und hau das dann als einen Klotz raus.
Otherwise, we won't be able to open door 9. That's how the nonary game works.
I see.
Junpei looked at the map of the ship's interior again.
Wait a sec. Hey, could this lead to...
As he looked more closely, his surprise and excitement gave way to weariness.
Oh!
You've got to be kidding me.
One by one, the others saw what he'd seen.
We may as well go. Yeah.
They moved as one for the door.
Oh, almost forgot. We should keep this.
He pulled the map of the ship's interior off the wall, put it in his pocket, and followed the others. The six of them stood in front of the door, arrayed in a semicircle. Sander stepped forward. He took hold of the door and spoke without looking back at the other five.
Ready? I'm gonna open it.
Slowly, all five nodded their silent assent. With a deep breath, Sander threw open the door. They poured through the doorway and into the room. Even without looking around, each one of them knew where they were.
I knew it.
They were just where the map had said they would be.
We're back. In the hospital room.
Jo, wie man sieht, das Ganze hat wieder zurückgeführt. Also auch wenn hier jemand zurückgelassen wurde, kann man den wieder mitnehmen.
I see. I believe I understand what you're saying. The 6 of you split into 2 teams and went through doors 7 and 8. You solved the puzzles in the operating room and the laboratory, and then met one another in the hallway after opening your respective locked doors.
He looked like anyone might after only just waking up, But it seemed that his brain was working as well as ever. He had managed to grasp, summarize and understand each team's report. Entschuldigung.
At any rate, I feel a bit silly for my little show of altruism. I know I said I was sure you'd come back for me. I didn't think it would happen so soon, though.
Ace shook his head with a rueful smile.
Well, we saw each other again and we ain't dead, so I say that's good enough.
7 smiled.
Anyway, I say we get out of this creepy old place. We found the key we need.
The key?
Ain't that what I just said? I'm talking about the Jupiter key. We found it in the operating room. Right, Junpei?
Yeah.
Junpei nodded.
Oh, the solar system keys. Actually, we found one in the laboratory too. Here, the Earth key.
Lotus dug out a still warm key with an Earth symbol on it.
I might lose it. It's probably better if you hold on to it. That way it won't be my fault if it gets lost.
Yeah. On it.
And with that, she pressed it into Junpei's hand. He felt slightly less than honored.
Now we have 3 keys that we haven't used yet.
Yeah. The Jupiter key that we found in the operating room. The Saturn key card we found in the kitchen. And the Earth key Lotus just gave me.
Junpei tucked the new keys into his pocket. June spoke up.
The Jupiter key is supposed to be for the door at the end of that long, straight hallway, right?
Yeah. If the map's right, then it connects to the central staircase. Then, next to the stairs...
Wait!
They were the first words everyone had heard out of Clover in quite some time. Her face suggested they weren't going to be very happy words.
What about door 3?
Look, you saw the map, right? It's the same as 7 and 8. It just lead us back to the big hospital room. There's no point to seeing what's on the other side of that door.
There is a point. At least there is for me.
Ja. Clover hat immerhin... Ja gut, sie sucht ihren Bruder, ne? There were tears in her eyes, but she glared at Seven as hard as she could, just the same. She looked very much like a frightened puppy. There wasn't a man alive who could have resisted those eyes. Seven looked everywhere in the room except at Clover, and muttered and coughed apologies under his breath.
Yeah, you're right, I'm sorry. Snake might be on the other side of door 3.
Clover nodded once. The next person to speak was Ace.
Very well. I'll be coming with you then. I've had a nice long rest. I think it's time I was up and about again. So, Seven, you'll help me, won't you?
Huh? Me?
Junpei did the calculations quickly in his head. 4 plus 1 plus 7 is 12. 1 plus 2 is 3. It looked like 7 was doing them too. At last he gave up.
Damn. Well, I guess that's how it's gotta be. So I'm going with you, huh?
Yes, you are.
Alright, let's get moving.
And so it was decided that Clover, Ace and Seven would discover what lay beyond door 3.
Okay, we're heading out.
Be careful.
Whoa. Didn't think I'd be hearing that from you, Lotus.
Don't let it go to your head. I'd be in trouble if the 3 of you bought it. The rest of us can't open the 9 door.
Ah, the truth comes out.
Seven nodded, as if this answer made much more sense, and pulled the lever on the red.
Okay, we're off.
The door opened and Ace, Clover and Seven jumped through it. 6, 7, 8. After exactly 9 seconds, the door closed noisily.
All right, we should get moving too.
Huh?
Get moving.
Where are we going?
Everyone except Lotus seemed rather confused.
Well, it would be a waste of time to just sit around, wouldn't it? Let me explain.
Oh, I get it. We're gonna see if we can get anywhere interesting with the Jupiter key.
Yes. If we're lucky, we might find Snake.
Hoffen wir mal, dass sie Glück haben. They were at the end of the hallway lined by individual hospital rooms.
And here's the Jupiter symbol on the keyhole.
All right, Junpei, open it if you please.
Yeah, on it.
Junpei pulled the Jupiter key out of his pocket and slid it into the keyhole. He twisted. With a nice sharp click, he felt the door unlock. Junpei sucked in a breath, held it, and opened the door as quietly as he could. Inside was exactly what he expected to see from the map of the ship's interior. They were in a tremendous hall, almost like a ballroom, with a massive central staircase. Entschuldigung, muss mich wieder... Ich weiß nicht, was mit meinem Hals heute los ist.
Great, back to the beginning. You sure this is a good idea?
What do you mean?
Well, we already searched every inch of this room, didn't we? I'm asking you if there's any reason we came back here.
Ich würde sagen, eigentlich ist klar, dass es einen Grund gibt, aber ich mache trotzdem den Würfelwurf, weil es hier keine Rolle spielt. 12 gewürfelt, no idea.
You know, that's a good question.
Junpei looked off into the distance, thoughtfully. Lotus sighed and shook her head.
I can't believe this. You guys followed me here, but you don't even know why? Junpei, you've got the solar system keys, don't you?
Yeah.
He did. He pulled them out.
The Saturn key card. And the Earth key.
What about him?
Junpei didn't see what they had to do with anything, though. Both he and Sander were completely lost. Fortunately, Junpei took pity... June. Fortunately, June took pity on them.
Don't you remember the elevator? On C deck, where we are now, there was a big elevator behind the stairs, remember? And next to the elevator, there was a card reader with the Saturn symbol on it. And on A deck, on the door to the left, there was a keyhole with the Earth symbol on it, I think.
Jo, wenn man also sich nicht erinnert, wo man denn diese Symbole alle hatte, jetzt weiß man's wieder.
So, the two keys that Jumpy has?
Should let us use the elevator and the door on A deck. Huh.
Yes, that's right.
June smiled, pleased with herself. So did Santa.
All right, I got it. Let's get started then. What do you say we split into two teams? Lotus and I will search the Earth one, so you two can search Saturn, all right?
Sounds good. Then you guys should take this key.
Junpei handed the Earth key to Santa. They decided that their initial search should be brief.
We have no idea what's on the other side of these. So don't go too far. Just search for 10 minutes and come back.
Plan decided, the two teams split it up. Junpei and June headed for the elevators.
There's a card reader next to the left elevator.
Then let's try out the Saturn key card.
A light on the upper left corner blinked to life.
Great! It looks like it's working now.
All right, now how do I call the elevator?
There was a single button on the right side of the elevator.
Oh, it only has the upside down triangle on it.
I guess there's no up button. Well, we may as well try pushing this one.
The door slid shut, and they heard the grinding of the motor as the elevator car moved down.
It opened! Look, Jumpy!
June's voice was excited, but Junpei could hear a tinge of anxiety.
Sweet! It opened! Let's get going.
He grinned at June and stepped toward the open door. As he was about to set foot in it, he felt a hand on his arm.
Wait!
What?
I'm not really, I just, oh gosh.
Junpei was at something of a loss. What could she possibly be so Nochmal von vorne. What could she Englische Sätze, verdammt. Tut mir leid, dass ich gerade so ein bisschen die Dramatik rausnehme. Wobei, so dramatisch ist die Szene jetzt gerade nicht. What could she possibly be so frightened of? Geht doch! June was probably afraid of being locked up alone with a boy und they could only go down. Spielt diesmal wieder für die weitere Storyline keine Rolle. Man kann das würfeln. Wieder eine 12, also they could only go down. She was afraid because the only elevator button pointed down. That meant, of course, that the elevator couldn't go any higher than the floor they were on. As he thought about it, Junpei realized he hadn't seen elevators on the A or B decks near the central staircase. All of which meant that the elevator could only convey them to the lower decks.
Come to think of it, the lower floor, D deck, is completely underwater. An elevator heading to a submerged floor. That is pretty scary. Hey, wait a minute. This elevator came up from somewhere under us, right?
Well, yes, I guess it did. It didn't open right away after you pressed the button. There was a motor noise, like it was moving, and then it opened.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So, take a look inside.
Junpei jerked his head toward the interior of the elevator.
It's not wet at all, is it? The walls and even the floor are totally dry.
Oh, you're right. They are.
She looked around the elevator, slightly embarrassed.
Well, let's test it.
Test it.
Yeah, watch this. Now, I'll just put one foot inside the elevator and look over at the buttons. Oh, there's only two. E and C. All right, I'll push E.
He pushed the E button and jumped out of the elevator. The door slid shut and they heard the grinding of the motor as the elevator car moved down.
I think I can hear it opening on E deck.
Okay, that's done. Now I'll just press the button again.
A few moments later, the elevator returned.
Yep, not a single drop of water to be seen. See?
Junpei couldn't resist puffing out his chest just a little bit. June, however, still looked confused.
What does that mean? How can E deck be safe if the D deck is full of water?
Well, here's what I think. The elevator shaft and E deck must be watertight and separated from wherever the ship's been punctured. Here, let me show you.
He pulled out his notebook and pen and sketched out a rough illustration.
I see. So is that why the ship hasn't sunk? The shape of the inside keeps it all from filling with water?
Yeah, I think that's what's going on.
Junpei continued talking as he closed the notebook and slipped it back into his pocket.
So I'm gonna go down and check it out. You stay here, alright?
But...
Come on, just do it, alright?
He gave June's shoulder a reassuring squeeze, then hopped onto the elevator. He pushed the E button and the door began to close. June looked worried, her eyes darting back and forth as if she was trying to make a decision when suddenly...
I'm coming with you!
Huh?
At the last possible moment, June dashed forward, turning sideways just in time to slip through the gap between the closing doors.
Hey, wait!
Junpei jammed his finger against the open button, but it was too late.
Oh, crap, it closed!
The door had shut. He and June were in the elevator and it was headed down to E deck. He was so surprised by June that he didn't even have time to think about what awaited him on the E deck.
I can't just let you go alone, you know.
Ah, jeez.
The elevator stopped and the door slid open. They tentatively stepped out and looked around.
It looks normal.
No fish going about their fishy business or jellyfish floating lazily through the water. There was, however, a blowfish. Or at least something that looked very much like one. June's cheeks were puffed out and her mouth a tiny, intense frown. Ich muss sagen, ich finde diese Vorstellung einfach witzig. Jetzt bin ich sicher vor... Wow. Ja, man sieht kein Wasser. Ich muss an der Stelle immer lachen.
Oh, knock it off. It's just like I thought. This part hasn't flooded. Come on, just look around. There's no water here.
June looked around nervously, then exhaled.
You're right. It's not flooded at all.
See?
But there's a whole lot of water.
Yeah, right on top of us.
What's gonna happen if the ceiling breaks?
Junpei thought about that for a moment.
We'd probably die.
Oh no. Don't be so casual about something like that.
At any rate, we should probably go back as soon as we can, once we're done looking around down here. Lotus and Santa might already be back.
Okay, good idea.
Now then...
Junpei glanced around the room they'd found themselves in. The first thing he noticed was a set of thick iron bars. They ran the length of the room, separating the left elevator from the right one.
Iron bars. Well, we can't go over there.
Right.
Then maybe...
In the corner of the room that housed the elevators, Junpei found an opening.
Well,
He walked up to it and stuck his head around the corner.
it looks like there's a long straight hallway down this way.
Something's written on the door at the end. Wait, is that...
Let's check.
Junpei and June set off down the hallway at a brisk clip, somewhere between a run and a jog. Before long, they found themselves in front of the door. On it was a number written in bright red paint. 6.
I knew it!
Haben wir also schon mal die 6. Tür. Ich überlege gerade, welche Türen haben wir bisher gefunden? Am Anfang gab es 4 und 5. Dann gab es 7, 8 und 3. Jetzt haben wir noch die 6 gefunden. Es fehlen also noch 1, 2 und 9.
This is a numbered door.
And indeed, there was a red bolted to the wall next... Ach, schon wieder. And indeed, there was a red bolted to the wall right next to the door.
But we can't do anything with only the 2 of us.
We better head back and let everyone know.
Yes.
Junpei and June turned and headed back to C deck.
Wait, what's this?
On their way back, Junpei noticed a map on the wall.
Is this the map for E-Deck? I should take it with me.
Toll, die Karte sehen wir gar nicht.
So you guys found door 1.
They'd met back up with Santa and Lotus, who had explained what they found. Apparently, there was another numbered door in A deck, just like the one on E deck, beyond the door that the Earth Key opened. According to Santa and Lotus, there was a 1 on the door.
So now we've located 2 new doors. The 6 door and the 1 door.
You know, it is interesting that E-Deck wasn't flooded.
Lotus was quiet for a moment, lost in thought.
Well, we don't really know if all of E-Deck is safe. We only checked the area around the elevator.
Even so, it's still very interesting.
You said the 6th door was there, right?
Yes.
Then that means Zero planned all this out, even the sinking. That would have meant some pretty serious remodeling of the ship's interior.
It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it.
Yeah. I wonder how long it took. I can't even imagine how much it must have cost.
It would have been a ton, that's for sure.
Well, that does go along with what Ace was saying. The most reasonable explanation would be that this was done by some organization with access to a whole lot of cash.
Yes, it does make sense.
That thought made them all go quiet for a moment. June bit her lip while Lotus sighed softly to herself and Santa cracked a stiff neck and stared off into the distance at nothing.
Yeah?
I don't think it's a very good idea to stay here.
June looked up at Junpei with large, pleading eyes.
Yeah, you're right. Ace and his team might be back already.
Well, Junpei and I should be able to open door 1.
Huh? You guys leaving me behind?
8 plus 6 plus 5 is 19. 1 plus 9 is 10. 1 plus 0 is 1.
Just kidding. All right, let's go.
Lotus's words were all the impetus they needed. Back to the large hospital room they went. The moment they stepped inside, a tremendous voice echoed across the room.
Hey! Where the hell did you guys go?
It was 7.
7?
Ace was right behind him and Clover was behind Ace, although she seemed to be hanging back.
What's wrong?
It looked as though there was something strange about them. 7 had the look of a man who'd seen a ghost. Ace was just as pale, and Clover looked as though she was only moments from passing out entirely. For a long moment they simply stood there, looking at one another. Junpei looked around nervously, waiting for someone else to speak. No one did. He looked at 7.
What happened?
What the hell kind of question is that?
7 was trying very hard to be angry, but something had shaken him, hard. His shoulders were trembling and his voice was strained.
Snake is...
7 couldn't finish. He just looked away, his face twisted by... Junpei wasn't sure what. Instead, Ace spoke. He took a deep breath, closed his eyes and spoke.
Snake is dead. He died, just as the 9th man did.
Üble Sache. It was as if all the air had suddenly been sucked out of the room. Junpei felt his heartbeat quicken, and he realized he was having trouble breathing. He could feel cold sweat beading on his forehead and neck. Ich möchte kurz anmerken, ich finde die Musik gerade einfach so unglaublich passend. Also es ist zwar eins, das wird in allen 3 Teilen dieser Reihe verwendet, aber ich finde diese Musik gerade so klasse. June, Sander and Lotus looked the way he felt. All 3 were frozen in place with their faces white.
Oh my god, that's not true, is it?
We should make sure.
Yeah, right. We should.
They nodded to one another and headed for the number 3 door.
Wait! Not that way!
What? Why not?
They stopped short and turned to look at 7. He was pointing at the door with no number.
I stuck a screwdriver in there to keep the door from closing all the way. It's not locked, so you can go in that way.
Where is he?
The shower room. The left side of the hallway. I put a broom in there too to keep the door open.
That means we can get in without going through the numbered door, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Then let's go.
The new destination cleared, Junpei and his companions headed for the door with no number. Once in the hallway, it was easy to spot the metal door on the left wall.
This wasn't open when we passed here before.
But now, just as 7 had said, there was a broom stuck between the door and the frame, keeping it open.
Well, let's keep going.
They looked at it for a moment, then stepped inside.
Oh, it smells horrible.
Lotus wrinkled her nose and covered her mouth in disgust. Even Sander pinched his nose shut.
Oh, yeah, this is pretty awful. I feel like I'm gonna puke.
It was just as bad as they said, perhaps worse. A hideous smell filled the air, so thick they could almost taste it. It was sour and smelled of fish, feces and burnt meat. It worked its way through Junpei's nose and down his throat to pound against the entrance of his stomach. He put his hands over his mouth and struggled to keep what little was in his stomach where it belonged.
Where is he? Where's Snake?
They didn't have to wonder where the body was.
There.
There was blood everywhere, a few arms of the splatter reaching toward them as they walked in through the door. All one had to do was follow the many radial arms to their source. The body itself was hidden behind a divider.
June, you should stay here.
But
Please, just do me a favor, okay? Alright?
He didn't give her a chance to say no. Put his hands on her he put his hand on her shoulder as if to shove her into the ground like a tent pole, turned and walked toward the end of the divider.
I'm going in.
It felt like it took an it felt like it took an eternity for him to get there. Santa and Lotus followed, timid and nervous as a pair of children. Eventually, they reached the divider. They looked at one another and nodded slowly. Junpei put his hands on the divider and peered around the corner. For a moment, he forgot to breathe. He felt his heart collapse in his chest like an empty cigarette carton, and time froze. He knew in that instant that he would take the image before him to the grave. What was left of the body sat in a sea of blood. Chunks of flesh torn from the body sat in the blood like tiny islands in the great Red Sea. A vast ragged hole had been torn in the torso, and what remained of his intestines spilled out like fresh spaghetti. Smaller chunks of meat had splattered against the wall and become stuck there as they dried. Globules of yellowish fat had left trails like tiny slugs as gravity pulled them down the wall, even as they dried to it.
Just like Ace said.
Ich muss sagen, ich finde die Beschreibung hier so ekelerregend, aber gerade das macht's auch irgendwie aus. Santa's voice was strained. Junpei suspected he was holding down some vomit of his own.
Just like the ninth man. The detonator in his bracelet set off the bomb in his gut.
It looked as though the explosion had been quite powerful.
Oh god. The bone is coming out of his left arm.
It's definitely an open fracture.
His legs were both bent in an odd, unnatural way, and his left arm had split open, exposing the painfully white bone of his ulna. The bracelet lay next to him. It seemed to have hit the wall hard enough to have shattered the display, which lay on the ground in pieces.
Oh, the face. It's horrible.
Yeah, you can't even tell who it is.
Half of his head had simply collapsed. The blood coating almost made it look like raw pizza dough covered in tomato sauce. His clothes, too, were covered in blood. The burgundy tie, the white shirt, the jacket with the yellow piping, and the grey slacks.
But the clothes are...
They were all familiar to Junpei.
No mistake about it. It's Snake.
Lotus's voice was unnaturally deep and strained, and Junpei heard it catch in her throat. Und jetzt würde ich sagen, hier mache ich einen Schnitt. Ich finde, das passt gerade sehr, sehr gut. Üble Situation. Aber sowas macht halt bei Zero Escape echt die Story aus, dass es solche Szenen gibt. Und das Schlimme war ja, als ich das erste Mal gespielt habe, bin ich zuerst durch die dritte Tür gegangen und da war dann direkt die Leiche. Oh, übel. Also vor allem, die müssen ja nicht mal die Leiche zeigen, diese Beschreibung reicht ja völlig aus und dieses Bild, das man im Kopf hat, übel, übel, übel. Naja. Was soll man sagen? Ist kein schönes Ende für diese Folge. Die Frage ist vor allem, wie ist das passiert? Wer hat Snake umgebracht? Und das wird wahrscheinlich in der nächsten Folge zur Genüge ausdiskutiert. Ich hoffe, ihr habt weiterhin Spaß. Lasst ein Däumchen da, wenn es euch soweit gefallen hat. Meinungen zu Charakteren, Situationen, Theorien, wer das war. Also, ich freue mich auf die Kommentare. Bis zum nächsten Mal. Cheerio.